The air in Blackwood Forest carried a primal weight, thick with the resinous scent of pine and the damp, loamy breath of the earth as Mike hauled the last of the camping gear up the steep, root-entangled incline. Sweat traced rivulets down his spine, soaking into the fabric of his shirt despite the cool, almost frigid breeze that threaded through the dense canopy overhead, where sunlight fractured into golden shards. 3 grueling hours of hiking had left his thighs trembling and his calves burning with a fire that seemed to pulse with each step. Yet the moment he crested the rise and broke into the clearing, a shiver unrelated to exhaustion prickled his skin like a warning. Ahead, Jenny moved with the grace of someone born to the wild, her auburn hair catching glints of sunlight that danced like embers, her silhouette framed by towering pines and cedars whose gnarled branches swayed gently in the wind, as if beckoning them deeper into the unknown. The clearing itself was a near-perfect circle, stretching 30 yards across, a stark contrast to the claustrophobic embrace of the forest. Its edges were bordered by ancient trees, their bark etched with the scars of centuries, their leaves rustling with a sound that mimicked whispered voices. A small river cut through the western boundary, its clear waters gurgling over smooth, moss-slicked stones, reflecting the sky in fractured glints. The open space promised room for their tents, the tree cover offered shelter from the elements, and the distance from marked trails fostered an illusion of solitude, a sanctuary carved from the wild heart of the Pacific Northwest. Yet as Mike dropped his pack and surveyed the scene, the silence that settled over them felt less like peace and more like a presence, a weight pressing against his chest, watching with unseen eyes. Ron emerged from the tree line behind him, his copper beard glistening with beads of sweat that caught the fading light, his broad frame collapsing onto the ground with a groan that reverberated too loudly in the stillness. "Damn, Mike, when you said you found a good spot, you weren't kidding," he said, his voice laced with a forced cheer that didn't reach his eyes, which darted briefly to the shadowed perimeter. Lisa followed, her long braids swaying with each step, her amber eyes scanning the clearing with an unsettling calm that seemed to pierce through the natural beauty. "It's beautiful," she murmured, her voice soft yet carrying an edge of reverence, her gaze lingering on the river as if she could see something beneath its surface that the others couldn't. The group settled into the familiar rhythm of camp setup, a dance honed by years of shared expeditions. Jenny and Mike worked in silent harmony, staking out their 3-person tent with practiced precision, the nylon canvas snapping taut against the earth. Ron and Lisa bickered over the rainfly, their voices rising and falling in a cadence that spoke of a marriage built on passionate disagreement. Ron insisting on his childhood camping expertise, Lisa countering with the memory of their last flooded tent. The domesticity of the moment warmed Mike, watching his wife of 5 years methodically organize their sleeping bags, her fingers tracing the fabric with a tenderness that mirrored their steady partnership. As dusk approached, they built a fire, the crackling flames casting flickering shadows that danced across the clearing, and the scent of chili simmering in Ron's pot mingled with the forest's earthy aroma, lulling them into a false sense of security. Yet as night deepened, the forest transformed, its edges blurring into a wall of impenetrable black beyond the firelight, and an unease began to coil in Mike's gut, a whisper of dread that the trees themselves seemed to echo. The night unfurled like a velvet shroud, the fire's warmth a fragile barrier against the encroaching darkness as Ron leaned forward, his voice dropping to a theatrical whisper that sent sparks spiraling upward. "They say these woods are some of the oldest in the Pacific Northwest," he began, poking at the embers with a stick, his eyes glinting with mischief. "Native legends speak of spirits that lived here long before people arrived, tricksters that could change their appearance, luring the unwary into the shadows." Jenny rolled her eyes, her skepticism a bright counterpoint to the tale, but Mike caught the quick glances Ron cast into the darkness, his broad shoulders tensing with each flicker of movement among the trees. A rustle of leaves, a snap of a twig. "Probably a deer," Ron dismissed with a laugh that rang hollow, though his fingers tightened around the stick, betraying his unease. As the fire dwindled to glowing embers, Mike noticed Ron's nervous tics multiplying. Furtive glances into the forest, hurried movements as he packed up dinner remnants. A subtle shift in his posture that suggested he was listening for something beyond the crackle of the flames. The camp fell silent, save for the hushed argument seeping from Ron and Lisa's tent, their whispers carrying just enough for Mike to discern the urgency in Lisa's voice, the clipped defensiveness in Ron's responses. Sleep came fitfully, the thin nylon of the tent his only shield against the wilderness. Jenny's breathing a soft rhythm against his shoulder, but it was fractured by dreams. Shadowy figures moving between trees, their outlines blurred yet disturbingly human, eyes reflecting moonlight that shouldn't have pierced the canopy. A childlike giggle sliced through the silence, raising the hair on his arms, its source elusive yet closer with each repetition. Awakening to pitch blackness, Mike's heart thudded against his ribs, the dream's residue clinging like damp fog. He strained to hear, the giggle morphing into a sob laugh that drifted from the clearing's edge, growing nearer with each breath. A silhouette loomed outside the tent, human yet unnaturally still, its form outlined against what must have been moonlight filtering through the trees. The head tilted at an impossible angle, a motion that sent a chill racing down Mike's spine. "Who's there?" he called, his voice cracking with a fear he couldn't suppress. The figure didn't respond, but he could have sworn it lingered, studying him, before vanishing into the night. Zipping the tent closed, Mike lay back, his pulse hammering, telling himself it was a tree branch or his imagination fueled by Ron's stories. Yet sleep returned with fragmented nightmares, eyes glowing with an otherworldly light, figures moving with jerky wrongness at the periphery of his vision, a sense of being watched by something patient and hungry. By dawn, exhaustion clung to him like a second skin, his eyes gritty from the interrupted night. He rubbed his face, feeling the stubble under his palms, trying to rationalize the silhouette's familiarity, as if it had been Jenny standing there while she slept beside him, her warmth a stark contrast to the cold dread pooling in his chest. The memory lingered, a shadow over the morning's light, as the camp stirred with a tension none of them could name. Breakfast passed in a strained silence that hung like a fog over the clearing, the usual banter replaced by the clink of utensils against plates. Ron emerged from his tent looking haggard, his normally meticulously wild beard disheveled in a way that suggested genuine neglect rather than calculated ruggedness, dark circles shadowing his eyes. Lisa joined, her perfect braid replaced by a hasty ponytail, her amber eyes sunken with fatigue, wincing at the metallic clatter of a cup against the stove. Mike pushed his instant oatmeal around, the taste ash in his mouth, while Jenny's tangled tent bed head and subdued demeanor mirrored the group's unease. Ron's announcement of a solo hike carried a defensive edge that startled Mike, his tone sharp as he slung his day pack over one shoulder and stalked off, disappearing into the trees without a backward glance. An hour later, Ron returned with a feverish excitement that seemed to crackle in the air. His shoulders back, steps quick and purposeful, eyes bright with a manic gleam. "Guys, you won't believe what I found," he said, dropping his pack and gesturing emphatically toward the north. An abandoned farmhouse about a mile that way. 2 stories, weathered wood, collapsed barn, the whole creepy abandoned property package. Mike frowned, his mind racing back to the topographical maps he'd pored over for weeks, their contours etched into his memory. No structures marked within 5 miles of this location. Jenny nodded beside him, her voice steady yet uncertain. "Plus, we scouted north yesterday for almost 2 miles when we were looking for kindling. There was nothing but forest." Ron's smile faltered for a split second before returning with doubled intensity. "Well, it's there. Must be really old. Unmarked on maps. Real ghost town material." The tent rustled as Lisa emerged, looking remarkably recovered, her voice casual yet jarring. "Oh, you found the farmhouse?" Mike's attention snapped to her, alarm bells ringing. "You knew about it?" She nodded, joining their circle. "We spotted it from that ridge yesterday. It looked interesting, but we didn't mention it because it seemed too far off trail." The discrepancy gnawed at Mike. Jenny and he had been with them on that ridge, seeing only forest, no farmhouse, no hint of anything unusual. Ron clapped his hands together, his enthusiasm a mask. "We should check it out after lunch. The place is amazing, like stepping back in time." Lunch preparations revealed Ron's oddities in stark relief. His movements deliberate, as if each step required conscious effort, his speech shifting to formal constructions devoid of his usual slang. His fingers curling around the camp stove with an experimental precision that mimicked human habit rather than flowed from it. Whispers between Ron and Lisa drifted over, harsh and abrupt, cutting off as Mike approached to collect supplies. "I can't just change the story," Lisa hissed. "Exactly as we discussed," Ron replied, his tone carrying an unfamiliar cadence that sent a shiver down Mike's spine. Their plastered smiles at lunch amplified his unease, a performance that made his skin crawl. "So, the farmhouse," Ron said, forking through his stir-fry. "We should head out in about an hour. Plenty of time to explore before dark." Jenny's raised eyebrows mirrored Mike's apprehension. "I'm not sure we should be exploring abandoned buildings in the middle of nowhere," she said diplomatically. Ron waved his fork dismissively. "It's perfectly safe. I checked it out. Floors are solid." Lisa set down her half-eaten plate. "Actually, I think I'll stay here. My headache might come back if I hike." The inconsistency hung heavy, first confirming a building that couldn't exist, then declining to visit it, deepening Mike's dread. Against every instinct, they packed daybags with water, snacks, and first aid supplies, Jenny insisting on flashlights despite Ron's assurances. Lisa retreated to her tent as they prepared to leave, her absence a void that amplified the tension. Ron led with unnerving confidence, navigating turns without hesitation, even as the terrain grew dense with underbrush that snagged at their ankles. The trails vanished, replaced by a forest that felt older, its trees growing too close, branches intertwining overhead to block much of the sky. Mike checked his compass, confirming their northern path, yet noting Ron's unerring certainty at every fork. "This doesn't feel like a mile," Jenny murmured after 40 minutes, her voice low, and this area wasn't on any of the trail maps. She suggested it might be unmapped, but her expression betrayed her doubt. Mike slowed, pulling her aside. "Something's wrong with him," he whispered urgently. "Acting different, moving different, talking different. And that story about the farmhouse, we were here yesterday." Jenny's grip tightened, her fingers cold. Lisa's behavior is bizarre too. First confirming a building she couldn't have seen, then staying behind. A heavy sense of wrongness settled over Mike, the forest's air thickening with each step, as if they were being led into a trap. The trees parted abruptly, and a two-story farmhouse stood impossibly before them, its weathered clapboard siding sagging under decades of neglect, broken windows gaping like hollow eyes, a collapsed barn 50 yards behind with its roof caved and walls listing dangerously. Mike's stomach dropped. This building couldn't exist here, its presence defying the maps he'd memorized. No vines crawled up its walls, no saplings pierced its porch, the clearing around it a perfect circle as if an invisible boundary repelled the forest's reclaiming grasp. "There, see," Ron gestured triumphantly, his voice too eager. Jenny's grip tightened painfully. "Mike, this isn't possible," she whispered. He nodded, unable to tear his eyes from the structure, its age palpable yet untouched by nature's decay. Ron strode toward it, his movements fluid yet alien. "Come on, let's check it out." Mike held Jenny back. "We shouldn't go in there." "I know," she agreed, "but we can't let him go alone. Whatever's happening with Ron, I'm worried." Reluctantly, they followed, the porch boards groaning under their weight, the front door hanging ajar, its paint peeling in long, curling strips. The interior swallowed them in dimness, dust motes swirling in beams of light that filtered through grimy windows, casting the entryway in a sickly yellow glow. To the right, a living room sprawled, its furniture draped in yellowed sheets that hinted at forgotten lives. To the left, a dining room with a table scarred by time. Ahead, a staircase climbed to the second floor, its steps visibly rotted, the banister splintered. The air carried the musty scent of neglect, peeling wallpaper curling like skin, water stains blooming across the ceiling like dark memories. Yet something felt staged. The absence of cobwebs in the corners, no animal droppings on the floors, no leaves or debris blown in through the broken windows, as if the house preserved itself against the natural order. Jenny called Mike to the living room, her voice tight, She stood beside a sheet-covered sofa, gesturing to a coffee table. "Look at this." He leaned closer, noting the dust's pattern, thick across most surfaces, yet marred by clear rectangular outlines where objects had recently Saturday someone's been here. He murmured, the realization chilling his blood. Ron appeared in the doorway, his enthusiasm grotesque in the oppressive stillness. "I'm going to check out the kitchen. This place is incredible." Before Mike could stop him, he disappeared down a hallway, his footsteps oddly muffled on the wooden floors. Jenny and Mike moved cautiously, lifting a sheet to reveal a faded floral sofa, its fabric pristine save for fading, an impossibility for decades of exposure. "Mike," Jenny's voice wavered, holding cigarette butts from a side table ashtray, the ash intact, days old at most. "We need to find Ron and get out of here," Mike said, scanning for further anomalies. In the kitchen, Ron opened cupboards with childlike curiosity, revealing rusted pots and pans hanging from hooks, an ancient refrigerator with its door propped open and interior empty, a cast iron stove coated in decades of grime. "Ron, someone's been here recently," Mike said, striving for calm. "We should go." Ron turned, his head tilting at an angle that jolted Mike with wrongness. "But we haven't seen everything yet. There's a basement." He pointed to a door beside the pantry. "And upstairs. We could split up, cover more ground." "We're not splitting up," Jenny said immediately. Ron's expression flickered. Not disappointment or annoyance, but a calculation that froze Mike's breath. "Fine. Upstairs first, then the basement together." They ascended the creaking staircase, Mike testing each step before allowing Jenny to follow, the aged would groaning under their weight. The second floor revealed a narrow hallway with 4 doors, 2 on each side, the air thick with must. Ron pushed open the first, a musty room with an iron bed frame and bare, stained mattress, a dresser missing drawers beneath a cracked mirror. Nothing unusual save the continued absence of animal evidence. The silence oppressive. A loud slam echoed, and Ron was gone. "Ron!" Mike called, rushing to the stairs. No response. The basement door stood open, darkness yawning below. "Ron, are you down there?" Jenny's voice echoed into the blackness. Silence. Mike pulled his flashlight, its beam cutting through the gloom as they descended, the wooden steps creaking ominously. The basement, a single open room with a dirt floor and stone foundation walls, held rusted tools, shelves of ancient preserved jars, a workbench covered in dusty equipment, but no Ron. Returning, the door was shut, the hallway now impossibly long, lined with identical doors stretching into shadow. "That's not possible," Mike breathed, backing against the basement door. The front door had vanished, windows showing only blackness. The house had ensnared them, its dimensions warping reality itself. With no escape, they moved methodically, testing doors with a growing sense of dread. The first swung open to a room filled with antique dolls, porcelain faces with painted smiles and glass eyes, arranged on shelves, chairs, and a small bed. As the door opened fully, every doll's head rotated in perfect unison to face them, their painted eyes seeming to track their movements with a silent, malevolent intent. "Jesus!" Mike gasped, slamming the door, his heart hammering. Jenny's face paled. "What's happening here, Mike?" "I don't know," he admitted, the failure bitter. "But we need to keep looking for Ron." The next door revealed a bedroom with faded wallpaper and an iron bed frame, but stepping inside, the temperature plummeted, their breath fogging in the frigid air, a cold that seeped into their bones. "Let's try another one," Jenny suggested, backing out quickly. The third required force, opening to a room with a single wooden chair facing the wall, dark stains spreading across the floorboards, dried blood soaked deep into the grain, radiating outward in a grotesque pattern. The wall bore a single word scratched into the plaster: "Watch! Don't go in there," Jenny warned, pulling at his sleeve. He didn't need convincing. Each room unveiled a new horror. One contained thousands of tiny mirrors covering every inch of wall space, each reflecting a slightly different version of themselves. Some with missing eyes, others with unnaturally wide smiles, their distorted faces a gallery of nightmare. Another appeared a child's bedroom, its stuffed animals meticulously dissected, their cotton innards arranged in precise, ritualistic patterns on the floor, the air thick with the scent of decay masked by something chemical. Time distorted, their watches showing 2 hours yet feeling both an eternity and a fleeting moment. The dim, sourceless yellow light casting everything in a sickly hue. "Mike, look at this one," Jenny called from across the hall. A sitting room overflowed with framed family photographs, hundreds spanning eras from sepia-toned portraits to modern snapshots. Every face methodically scratched out, leaving ragged holes where eyes, noses, and mouths should have been. "Who would do this?" Jenny whispered, stepping cautiously inside. Mike followed, drawn to an ornate, gold-leafed frame near the center, its photograph showing 4 figures before this farmhouse, their scratched-out faces hauntingly familiar in posture. "Jenny," he began, but a sound froze his blood. "Help me?" Ron's voice echoing through the house, seeming to come from everywhere at once, desperate and pained. "That's Ron." Jenny grabbed his arm. "We have to find him." They rushed into the hallway, the voice growing more frantic with each repetition. At a junction splitting into 3 identical corridors, Ron's pleas echoed from all directions. A door at the rightmost end creaked open slightly, an invitation laced with dread. They approached cautiously, the silence deafening as they reached it. "We have to," Jenny whispered, her face mirroring his fear. He nodded, pushing the door open. The stench hit first, a nauseating blend of burning flesh and chemical preservation that made Mike's stomach lurch, while rising in his throat. The room was larger than any they'd encountered, its high ceiling hung with several bodies suspended by hooks through their shoulders, their skin peeling away in long, glistening strips that never quite detached. Despite the obvious mutilation, the bodies moved, twitching and writhing with a life that defied death, their exposed flesh smoldering with a slow, consuming fire that never burned out. The air thick with the acrid tang of char. Jenny wretched beside him, turning away, while Mike's gaze locked on a familiar figure. Long dark hair in a neat braid, amber eyes open and aware. "Lisa," he whispered, the name slipping out. Her head turned, her movements wrong, as if operated by something that didn't understand human anatomy. "That's not Lisa," Jenny gasped, pulling at his arm. "Mike, we need to get out now." The room responded, the door slamming shut and vanishing, the wall sealing seamlessly as if it had never existed. The suspended bodies swayed more violently, their silent burning accelerating, the heat intensifying. "There!" Jenny pointed to a window on the far wall, the first showing actual daylight beyond. They ran, dodging the swinging forms, Mike grabbing a brass candlestick to smash the glass. It shattered outward, revealing the clearing and forest 2 stories below, the ground impossibly distant. "You first," he urged, helping her onto the sill, glass shards threatening her boots. Behind, the walls pulsed like a breathing entity, the floor rippling in waves. The Lisa thing's mouth opened wider than humanly possible. "Jump!" Mike shouted as Jenny hesitated. She nodded, pushing off, and he scrambled to follow, the house groaning with a deep, sentient rumble. The window contracted, nearly crushing his shoulders. Jenny's scream cutting through as he fell, blackness consuming him. Pain erupted through Mike's body as consciousness slammed back, his eyes snapping open to a gray sky and spinning forest canopy, every inch throbbing, back, shoulders, head. The taste of copper filled his mouth, and hands gripped his shoulders with desperate intensity. "Mike, wake up, please." Lisa's face swam into focus, contorted with panic, blood trickling from a gash on her forehead. Her neat braid undone, hair wild, jacket torn to expose raw, bleeding skin. "Jenny," he croaked, the name tumbling out. "Where's Jenny?" "We have to go," Lisa said, ignoring his question, her eyes darting behind him. He rolled his head, stomach lurching at the farmhouse's decrepit form, its windows like dead eyes. Jenny jumped too. He struggled to sit, pain shooting through his ribs. "She was right here. Nobody was here when I found you." Lisa pulled him up, her strength surprising. "Please, Mike, we can't stay." Staggering upright, the world tilted, his right ankle screaming with each step. "How are you even here?" he asked, leaning on her. "You stayed at camp. I followed you. Something felt wrong. I watched you go in. Then the building changed, twisting. I knew I had to get you out." They stumbled through underbrush, Lisa half carrying him, the farmhouse receding yet its presence lingering. "Where's Jenny?" he asked again, voice stronger. "I don't know." She pulled him forward. "I only found you. You were just lying there. But that house, Mike, it's wrong. I saw inside. Corridors changing, rooms appearing and disappearing." He tried to stop. "We have to go back. Jenny's still in there." "You don't understand." Lisa's voice cracked, amber eyes wide with terror. "I saw things in there. Things wearing people's faces, moving wrong like they were learning to be human." The memory of Lisa's face among the burning bodies flashed, her skin moving incorrectly. "You were in there," he said slowly. "That wasn't me," she replied, fear replacing her blankness. "They look like people, but they're not." His head throbbed, reality fracturing. "Ron, we need to get back to camp," Lisa interrupted, resuming her pull. "Maybe they're already there." The thin hope drove him forward. The campsite emerged, ravaged, tents slashed, supplies scattered like a battlefield. "Jesus?" Mike whispered, limping through the wreckage, his tent in tatters, backpacks gutted, food containers smashed. Lisa knelt beside her tent's remains, voice barely audible. He found his knife and pistol, tucking them away. Twilight loomed, shadows lengthening. "We need to find them," he said, retrieving a flashlight. They searched, voices growing hoarse, the forest absorbing their calls. Lisa flinched at every sound, glancing over her shoulder. "Tell me what you saw," Mike said during a rest. "Hallways that shouldn't fit, doors to walls, things like puppets," she whispered. "One looked like Ron, its face unfolding with too many teeth." A gunshot cut through, leading them to a clearing where Ron lay dead, blood pooling, Jenny kneeling with the pistol. "Don't come closer," she warned, eyes feral. "You're not my husband." Memories, first date, wedding, lost pregnancy, softened her gaze, the gun falling as she collapsed, blood seeping from a gash. "Not Lisa," she whispered, describing a laboratory. A dissected Lisa, Ron's attack, her stabbing. Her breath faded, leaving Mike with a promise to tell the world. Rangers found Mike with Jenny's body, handcuffing him as he clung to her, fearing they'd take her shape. "Where is she?" he rasped. "The female victim is being transported," they answered, steering him away, a body bag zipping over Jenny's face. Lisa was never found. Reports blaming hunting accidents and falls, dismissing his tale. In a psychiatric facility, he pretended recovery, researching Blackwood, disappearances, fungal clearings, indigenous warnings of hollow people. Returning with cameras and sensors, he documented empty clearings and bone patterns. In Seattle, he saw Lisa, her blank eyes chilling him. Authorities offered sympathy, not belief. Alone, he compiled evidence, cycles, hotspots, stolen faces, vowing to expose the ancient predators. Can you face the isolation of these woods? Or would the whispers drive you to madness? Could you trust the face of a loved one after witnessing such horrors? Dive into this tale if you dare, but beware, the forest remembers.